Good day, Wayne Duvenage here from AARTO. This is our weekly wrap, end of the first week in November. And this week's wrap is really going to talk a little bit about just laws that do not follow logic. We can talk about AARTO, NSFAS, and some of the return of the untouchables. The same failures, just different departments. So we'll get on to some of these matters around AARTO, which released some regulations this week, and we've got some serious concerns to discuss around higher education, deepening policing and justice scandals coming out of the Madlanga Commission and the Ad Hoc committee, as well as the recent matter and regarding Malusi Gigaba. Remember him? So let's get stuck into it straight away. Let's open up with AARTO. The AARTO regulations chaos just simply continues. They released their regulations this week. There's been no meaningful public participation. And in this release, there's Schedule 3 of the list of offences is just completely ineligible. You can't even read it. So while the rollout of this demerit point system is planned for December, well, actually, it's not the demerit point system. That's only going to come into being in September next year. But there are another 69 municipalities that are now going to be switched onto the AARTO system, and another 144 in the second quarter of next year. And as I said, the demerit point system in September. Now again, we are not opposed to demerit point systems and good governance around traffic fines and traffic management. The problem is, as we've always said, this scheme is impractical. It's irrational. It is going to collapse on its own weight and the administrative burdensomeness of this whole matter. And we already see announcements this week that municipalities and the City of Cape Town, the Western Cape, are pulling back. They are not going to participate in AARTO to the extent that the Road Traffic Infringement Agency wants them to. And this is a serious issue that we raised in our Constitutional Court challenge, where we saw the executive powers of national government usurping the political powers and the powers of local government. And now it's raising its head. We warned them. They didn't listen. Well, here it comes. And so, quite frankly, remember e-tolls? Government has this view that if it just legislates something, it's just going to fall into place without making sure that the administration and the systems and the processes are rational, implementable, and accurate. And that's not the case in this matter. So, our message really is you just can't build road safety mechanisms on a broken foundation. And we really do appeal, again, as we have done many times, to the Department of Transport and the RTIA. You need to meet with civil society. You need to meet meaningfully with the main role players. And we need to help you thrash this out and fix it. Because if you want to launch it in its current capacity and state, it's going to fail. Very interesting development this week is announcements that there's a transition in the license, the driver's license cards, to becoming a digital solution. This is good. This does, if it does get implemented, solve the whole process of broken machines, expensive tenders, corrupt tenders that have been happening here for far too long. It's going to certainly reduce costs, create greater efficiencies, something that society has been calling for some time. So let's just ensure that there's transparency and that it is rolled out properly. But this appears to be a good development taking place in the Department of Transport, and let's watch this space. Now, I did mention that NSFAS, higher education, let's just start there. I don't want to go too deep into this in this discussion. If you look in the AARTO YouTube channel, you'll see this week we put out a scathing video, a scathing overview of what is happening at higher education. And we termed it or labeled it as the recapture of higher education by Buti Manamela, the new or recently appointed Minister of Higher Education. It is scathing. Quite frankly, we're going backwards. We saw this week the resignation of Dr. Standa, the chairperson of NSFAS. We've reported on a lot of corruption that has happened there, and her removal and the number of the board members that have resigned in the last week or so is indicative of a scheme or an entity in a department that, as she puts it, gross mismanagement and racism and bullying and intimidation and threats against people like her who are just trying to ensure good governance. And we're not surprised. And while Manamela admits to some challenges, we just see the same cycle of mismanagement, no accountability, billions of rands at risk. And so watch that video and you'll see. In that we also raise our concerns around appointments of SETA CEOs, SETA board members, where billions of rands flow, where we've seen massive corruption over the years. And these reappointments of some of these CEOs, we are seriously questioning. We believe there's been a breach and overreach by the minister, and these are potentially going to lead to legal challenges. Quite frankly, higher education is in such a mess that it needs a big investigation. Watch that video, please. We released it. It's right in our channel here. It's probably the next video, the last video we've done prior to this one. It is very, very worrying. So let's reflect a little bit on the policing and justice scandals. This crisis of credibility that is just unfolding. We see failures to convince the public that we are able, as the police force, as the criminal justice system, to enforce the law without fear or favor. At the center of this week's storm is Andrea Johnson, the head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, or IDAC, known as IDAC as well. She's pushing back fiercely against claims of a witch hunt after arrests linked to these clandestine slush fund operations within these law enforcement ranks. And her message was sharp. This is not, as she says, a political persecution. It is an attempt to do or clean up in this space, which is long overdue. And for years, whistleblowers and oversight bodies and civil society have warned that these COVID funds, which are supposed to be used for intelligence work, have been really just usurped and morphed into cash pipelines for favored insiders. So, of course, what's going to happen is when arrests eventually do happen, there's going to be this cry of a witch hunt. And I think this says more about people who are actually guilty and have guilty consciences, as opposed to political vendettas being carried out by IDAC. So let's just watch this space. The question really does hang heavy on how many such hidden networks still operate in the shadows of our justice institutions. Because while the NPA fights one fire, we just see these infernos are raging across the Hawks and other areas within the policing systems. So the so-called the double agent scandal has exposed how investigators who are supposed to be fighting on our side and dealing with corruption and taking on the bad people are actually protecting them and tipping them off and telling them what's happening. This is the stuff that's coming out of these commissions and these ad hoc committee exposés. So it is really a case of sabotage within, and it just weakens public trust in our criminal justice system. What we are just seeing is that if we don't get this right, if we don't fix this, these disturbing patterns of cases that just get quietly shelved when political heavyweights are implicated, or senior appointments that take place really to support and advance political agendas, internal investigations that are sidelined, and people that are intimidated because they're persecuting or going after connected people. This is all serious stuff. And even if half of this is true, it confirms what society has been saying all along, and South Africans suspect that the rule of law is being held hostage by political interests. And And unless we deal with this, unless the powers that be tackle this serious issue, they're going to lose. We're going to lose trust. We're going to not be able to convince the public that the criminal justice system is not compromised, and that law enforcement is going to be the subject of a lot of questions. Every time there are cases put forward, we're going to be questioning what's happening with the prosecutions. Why aren't they taking place effectively? So we've got to stand steadfast and call for transparency and deep structural reform in the police. And hopefully this comes out of these commissions. We're just tired as the public of scandals with no consequences. We can't afford these investigations and exposés of wrongdoing against people who are clearly guilty to just be set aside and retired, and then we see people who are implicated promoted and find their way into other positions of power. So we must be relentless on the need for reform in this space, and that transparency has to be non-negotiable. As we've always said, transparency is the enemy of corruption, and we really need this work to be meaningful. So I just want to also reflect a bit on Malusi Gigaba. He's recently come into the spotlight again. Now, many might think, or be concerned about, well, what happened? What was Malusi Gigaba's role in state capture? And it was a serious role. So yes, IDAC has said today, look, they're not going to comment on this. Malusi Gigaba is out there saying, I'm all clean, they're not arresting me, there's no charges, they've got nothing against me. Well, we believe that things are happening, that the IDAC is working on something. So just to give you some background on Malusi Gigaba, when he was the Minister of Public Enterprises, he ensured that the only railway specialist that was on the Transnet board was removed to make way for Gupta lackey Iqbal Sharma. And Iqbal Sharma came onto the board so that he could make sure that things flowed the way that the Guptas wanted to. You must also remember, and we followed, by the way, I mean, Gigaba signed the contract, this 1064 locomotives deal, which Brian Molefe, yes, he was the CEO of Transnet at the time, signed. And Gigaba was the witness signatory on that contract. And we know that contract saw billions of rands flowing through HSBC in Hong Kong and laundered into many companies connected to the Guptas. So, Gigaba, there's a lot of smoke there, and we believe that that the NPA and IDAC are investigating him. So he's not so clean. He also was the minister who looked away while he was the Minister of Public Enterprises when Duvenage, who was implicated in so much wrongdoing, and billions of rands had to be paid out to bail out SAA. He did nothing. He looked away. I mean, why did he do that? He was always on the invitation list, sitting at the main table alongside AJ Gupta when they were having their functions. Remember that. When he was Home Affairs Minister, he approved Gupta's naturalization applications. He supported the Guptas when it came to that whole Fireblade terminal at Oliver Tambo, trying to get that handed over to the Guptas. He was the one that was supporting that. He was the one that appointed Gideon Christians in Delhi to assist the Guptas with their visa applications and working permits for their staff that were working at their ANN7 TV channel. So we laid charges against them. There are serious issues pertaining to Malusi Gigaba. So if you ask us, that saga's not over. And he can continue to gloat and tell the public that there's nothing untoward and they've got nothing on him. I believe that the IDAC has a lot on him and that things are unfolding. So just to wrap up, MTBPS is coming next week. What is that? The midterm budget policy statements will be tabled next week. We'll be watching this space. Why? Because it's important to know where money flows, and we've always been saying that not enough funds are allocated to the criminal justice system to capacitate it, to fix all these problems that we're hearing about, to hold people to account, to start arresting the criminals, the criminal networks that have infiltrated many government departments. And so watch what is presented, and we'll be commenting on that next week. And I just want to say this as we wrap up. Corruption is a serious problem, and not enough is being done about it. It is on steroids. It is a big problem right now as we try and enter into the new year. We're going towards our second year of a new government of national unity. And yes, while there are some good things, and we don't want to say there's a lot of doom and gloom, this country has a lot of prosperity that is untapped and unlocked as a result of corruption that is not being dealt with, as a result of cadre deployment, of ineffective people put in positions, lack of professionalism in government, and we have to do this hard work. So thanks for listening. If you haven't already done so, please can I ask you to subscribe and share this video channel as widely as you can. We need to get more people to understand of what active citizenry is all about, what we have to do to hold the fort in between elections as we move towards a country that is going to become successful in time. But between those elections, we have to hold the baton, we have to fight harder. And OUTA is about not just exposing corruption, but fighting hard to undo it. So we must keep questioning, we must keep demanding answers. And until next week, have a good weekend. Go Bokke. I hope you give those French a snot clap in their own backyard. But thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.